to AFA Today. Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin McCullough over the next few days. I tell you what, I always enjoy this time of the year, Christmas time, and one of the highlights, as we were talking about a little bit earlier in the hour, is our annual Gospel for Asia's Christmas Critter campaign. It is a wonderful program where you get an opportunity at this time of the year. You know, you're out busy buying gifts for family and that sort of thing, but you know, as Christians, we ought to be thinking about families around the world and the opportunity to share the gospel in places like India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. The Gospel for Asia does a wonderful job of doing that. We come alongside them this time of the year for the annual Christmas Critter campaign. Now, if you've never heard about this, well, basically it's this. You get an opportunity to buy a critter, like a chicken or a goat or a pig or even a water buffalo. You get a chance to buy one of those animals to help economically a family that lives in these countries. You know, many of them live in abject poverty. And these animals, you may not think, well, how's that going to help them? It helps them remarkably. You can imagine you buy a pair of chickens for them, what that does for them, or a goat, or a pig, or a water buffalo, how that can help them economically. And the wonderful part about all of this is that these animals are delivered by local missionaries, and they get a chance to share the gospel, share the love of Jesus Christ, and share also how much Christians in this country love them and would like to see them come to Jesus Christ. So how does it work? Well, very easily. You can call us at 877-907-GOAT, GOAT, 877-907-GOAT, or 877-907-4628, 877-907-4628, or visit afr.net. And the price of these things, hey, pair of chickens, $11. Now, that's less than a trip to McDonald's for a couple of people, folks. Pair of chickens for $11. And we'll make sure those chickens, and all of this money goes directly to Gospel Asia to produce, to give these animals. And, pair of chickens, probably in the run of a year, produce, 200, 300 eggs or so? Wow, what a help that is. For a goat, $70. My goodness, for the milk that it offers. Water buffalo, how important that would be in providing some economic stability for families. Pair of lambs for $130. So, folks, this time of the year, as we think about giving gifts to each other and we're out shopping, think about this wonderful way that you can shop, certainly, just so easily. Pick up the phone and call 877-907-GOAT, 877-907-4628, or visit afr.net. 888-589-8840, the number to call. 888-589-8840. Your opportunity to kind of chime in a number of major news stories today that we have been talking about. The Obama administration actually celebrating today that you, the taxpayer, have only lost just over $10 billion in the bailout of General Motors. Yeah, they're celebrating it. They think it's just wonderful that you've only lost $10 billion in this deal. Only the government would celebrate a loss of $10 billion. But that's true. They're celebrating it. They still think it's a good investment for you, the taxpayer, to help out a company, despite the fact that you've lost that much money in the deal. And we've also just been talking with our guest, who is Dan Stein, Federation of American Immigration Reform, telling us about the latest move by the Obama administration to get around the laws of the land, to provide amnesty for even more people. Of course, the president several months back said young people who are kids of people who are in the country illegally won't be deported. And now apparently he's ready to expand that. And families of people who have, under a visa waiver program, a family member in the U.S. military, and there are at least 30,000, we're told, in the U.S. military right now. Now, they are here legally, but what President Barack Obama wants to do is to turn around, if they have family members in this country illegally, to order that they not be deported. So that's the idea of immigration reform, better known as amnesty, is just to end deportations. Even though the law of the land calls for them to be deported, as we have seen from this president and his administration, they really don't care about the law. If they don't like the law, they just say we're not going to enforce it. They've done it with the Defense of Marriage Act. They have done it with Obamacare. Yes, the president's much celebrated law, he has even made changes in that himself. He just says, no, we're going to change the dates. We're not going to allow this right now. He says it's the law of the land, so it's going to stay the same, but makes changes. This is the way this president operates. 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Let's go to our first caller of the day, and I do believe it is Dennis in Jackson. Dennis, welcome to the program.
Hi, Fred. Thanks
Hi.
for taking my call.
You bet.
I tell you what, I've been on the phone to my congressman, and I still haven't heard anything back from them as far as, seeing any action on. They need to bring him up on impeachment charges. This is just another example of him, doing something against the law.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you talking about he just picks and chooses which laws he wants to enforce and which ones he doesn't want to enforce. And then the ones he wants to enforce, he changes them to what he expects them to mean. So, I don't know. It's getting terrible.
It's interesting, Dennis, and I know you've observed this, but I remember back when he was running for office, of course, he said he was going to change the country and change the world. And certainly we saw that, of course, as soon as he was elected in 2008. Obamacare was birthed in the Democrat-controlled Congress and passed before the follow-up election in 2010. And this just seems to be the way he operates. And, of course, one of the big assets he still has is that the mainstream media, although some of them are starting to catch on that this isn't a good thing, the mainstream media, for the most part, still does not hold him accountable. And we still have Republicans. When it comes to this whole issue of amnesty, you have a growing number of Republicans who say they're willing to go along with this, to pass so-called comprehensive immigration reform. But the reality is, even going back to President Reagan and other presidents since, they've all bought into this idea of amnesty, and this is going to stop the illegal immigration, but we know that it has not. So the way to resolve this problem is not to give in, but that seems to be the track that this president is willing to do with or without the help of Congress. So, Dennis, I think you're doing the right thing. Number one, keep trying to get a hold of your member of Congress. There is an election coming up in about 11 months. And members of Congress, of the House, are all up for election. And there are some key senators in states like Louisiana and Arkansas, Democrat senators that are up for re-election.
And one in Mississippi, too. And
Mississippi. So, listen, this is the time to hold these people accountable. A lot of people, Dennis, I think, are like you. They get frustrated. But the way the system works in this country, elections have consequences. So, Dennis, thank you so much for calling, and keep trying to get a hold of your member of Congress and, yes, hold them accountable. Ray in Virginia, welcome to the program. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I agree with you entirely with regard to the immigration matter. Just one observation. Just a slight course correction. I understand your point about Obama working unilaterally on his own to ignore laws. However, his predecessor also did the same thing through signing statements. And I do remember hearing Dick Cheney say to meet the press one Sunday morning, what are they going to do about it if you ignore it?
Right.
And I think it's only fair that you balance it out.
Oh, yeah, and that's why we have said when it comes to the issue of immigration, Republican presidents have done the same thing. And under the guise, I believe, of trying to get the Latino vote. The only problem is the difference between the Republicans and Democrats, and let's stick with the issue of immigration reform, so-called immigration reform. The belief in the Republican Party is that they will get more of the Latino vote. But past presidents, including Ronald Reagan, found out that even though he offered an amnesty program, Latinos did not vote and did not turn to the Republican Party. And this is what frustrates a lot of people in the conservative community is, why are you calling? Why are you willing to go along with immigration reform when you will not get the vote benefit from it? And that is what's frustrating. But your point is well taken, Ray. Many times, as the founder of our organization at American Family Association, Dr. Don Wildman was off to say when he was hosting this program, and it was called AFA Report, something happens when politicians, and he included Republicans and Democrats, when they go to Washington, something happens with their reasoning, and they want to get reelected. It seems to be the main priority. But thank you so much for your call, Ray, in Virginia. Next to Texas and William. Go ahead, William.
Oh, hello. I had a question about what you're actually talking about right now. What exactly should we be doing about this whole situation? Because you're saying call our congressmen or our senators, but there's I believe, 98% incumbent rate among congressmen and senators. So it seems like they are really much more concerned with just keeping their job than doing their job, you know?
Well, I think that's the problem always, William, when it comes to election time. You know, they kind of put their finger to the political wind and see how things are blowing. But, you know, I still think, William, I'm not willing to give up the fight yet. I still think with the help of groups like the Tea Party out there, and you know the Tea Party is having a stronger influence. They had certainly had an influence in the 2010 election. We saw a major reversal then. Now, in 2012, a lot of people said, well, it seems the Tea Party had just faded away. But certainly there are reports now the Tea Party is back and very strong. And I was talking to a supporter of the Tea Party movement, I'll put it that way, on the weekend. And they're going to get more involved at the primary level than certainly they were in the last election. And you're going to see some challenges to some longtime Republicans. And they're going to hold the feet of these incumbent Republicans to the fire, as it were.
Yeah,
and so we may see some changes there.
We need to see not even opposition particularly, but just challenging to both of the political parties that we have in power right now. I mean, just something to shake things up.
Absolutely. William, good to talk to you. We appreciate your call. To New Mexico. And Bob, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi there. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I just want to make one quick comment.
Sure.
It's not on immigration because that's a whole nother soapbox. But I just was wondering if I was the only one that noticed that it's kind of strange that our president could run halfway around the world to a memorial for a guy that in his heart was a socialist, but he couldn't drive a few miles down the road to the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address.
Very good point.
I guess that website thing must have straightened out.
Well, I heard a commentary, Bob, from someone yesterday that that the president decided to take this, I think it's 36-hour round trip to South Africa for this memorial service, just to get away from the heat in Washington, the political heat in Washington. But he's got to come back to it. And Obamacare, and a lot of people talk about the website working, it's working better. The problem with Obamacare, as many people have pointed out, the website is just a symptom of the bigger problem, that this thing is not going to work. It's as simple as that. People are not signing up. The only people signing up are the people who are going to get government subsidies. And the insurance companies are balking at that already because the insurance companies are not getting the subsidies that Obamacare says they're supposed to get in order to get these people coverage. And we also have been reporting on the fact, and this now famous Harvard survey that was done of young people, we're talking young people between the ages of 18 and 30, Obamacare depends on them buying insurance in order to pay for these subsidies. And that is simply not happening. So, despite the fact, and we've been talking about Obama using executive orders and all these kinds of things, unless he can convince young people and others to buy into this, Obamacare is going to be a failure. It is on that track. and there's very little that he can do about it. He's not, because of pride, he is not going to repeal it. He is not going to put it on hold. And those Democrats who are facing re-election next year, they're doing their very best to distance themselves from Obamacare. But as the Republicans have said, and there's one key Republican strategist has said, we're going to paint Obamacare on the foreheads of every Democrat. Because the reality is, Obamacare was passed by only Democrats. Not a single Republican voted for it. And so this, as many people have said, is going to be the key issue. And the president may be able to use executive orders in areas like Defense of Marriage Act, in areas like Don't Ask, Don't Tell, in areas like even Obamacare to a certain extent. But he's not going to be able to escape the wrath, which I believe is only going to build as people find out that either, they can't afford the new premiums or the deductibles are so high that Obamacare is bad. I'm reading recent surveys that even those who describe themselves as liberals on social issues are not going to put up with Obamacare. But to go back to the original point, keeping our elected officials accountable, there is an opportunity to do that over the next 11 months, and people need to get involved with the process. Hey, listen, good to be with you today. Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin McCullough here on AFA Today. Much more great programming ahead here on AFR Talk, Lord willing. We'll see you tomorrow. You have yourself a good day.